Action. Okay, I'm going to do a ranking video of all of the Phineas and Ferb guest stars whom I care about. So, here is the tier list that I have comprised in Tier Maker. Obviously, every single guest star ever featured on Phineas and Ferb is not on here, so these represent my favorites, some of the most notable ones, some interesting celebrities that were featured. I am drawing the line. Phineas and Ferb has a habit of having a lot of big name voice actors come in as their guest stars. However, I think that should be reserved for a different tier list because I think that represents a different sort of cameo rather than a general celebrity cameo. So, first on my list, I have Rocco the Pizza Guy, voiced by Guy Fieri. That's Fieri, not Fieri. So, I am a member of Flavortown. I fervently support the mayor. However, I don't really remember this cameo, and that's a disappointment. Also, look at this design. This man does not look like Guy Fieri. So, we're starting off pretty weak. I think that's an F tier cameo, because, Guy Fieri deserves his flame shirt, not some, typical chef outfit, because he's not a typical chef. He is the chef. Up next, we have Meep from the various Meep episodes. This one is Meepless in Seattle. Now, for anyone who's a fan of the Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension movie, you'll know that I Met Lorenzo, he played Meep. They say it right in the show. I am not familiar with Lorenzo. He is a soap opera star, so unfortunately Meep will get dragged down for that. But I do like the joke of the Phineas and Ferb team reaching out to this famous soap opera star and being like, hey, do you want to voice a character in our cartoon series? Yet you have one line. It's Meep. So, B tier, because love Meep, but I don't know Lorenzo, who played Meep. Up next is Lawrence's brother, Adrian. That's another thing I should stipulate, because technically, Lawrence's voice actor is famous. It's the guy that wrote the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is insane to me. But I figure that he's a regular enough character in the show that it doesn't really count as a guest star. So I'll add that in there. So Adrian, I have this little list here that shows everyone who's going to be on the list. So Adrian Fletcher is played by Phil Jupitus. So I'm just making sure. I don't want to spread misinformation. So Adrian Fletcher, voiced by Phil Jupitus. He appears in one episode. And, I like his scene where they have to play Keep Yuppie. But, it's a pretty meh cameo. I think it's better than Rocco the Pizza Guy and the disservice they did to Guy Fieri. That's not great. So, Little Annabelle Johnson is voiced by Tina Fey. Wild. I don't have much to say about her, so I'm just gonna put her in C tier because it was a fine cameo. It's a good conclusion to the episode where they're looking for little Annabelle, and, I like Tina Fey. Up next is Wilbur and Orville. I think that's their names. They're not very memorable. I just remember they get yelled at by their mom. I didn't even realize this was a celebrity cameo, but they're voiced by Tom Wopat and John Schneider, who played the Duke boys in the original Dukes of Hazzard series. They're fine. I'm gonna put them in D tier. Okay. Kenny Ortega, director of the High School Musical movies. He's a pretty well-known choreographer. But I love this cameo. I think it's a great one. It's during that great number where it's like, you don't have to build... I'm not gonna sing. You don't have to build a roller coaster. Yeah, and then they stop. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then Phineas goes, Kenny Ortega! And then Kenny Ortega shows up and, choreographs everyone to, get their arms up. I think it's a great cameo. I'm gonna put that... I'll put it... Okay, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Because I think it's good, but it's pretty short-lived. And looking at some of the ones on this list, that might move, but it might not. Okay, up next. I wanted to save this man till the end, but the fates have chosen him to be next. This is Kaka Poo Poo. I'm sorry. It's been probably a decade since I've seen that episode. Maybe not. I'm not gonna fact check it, but it feels like that. And that name still gets me. Kaka Poo Poo. I'm a child. But he's played by Ben Stiller, and he does a great job, and I love him. So Kaka Poo Poo gets S tier Kaka Poo Poo. Because I love the character, and then I found out that he was played by Ben Stiller in a very true WTF moment. So, yep. Up next. Coltrane. I loved Coltrane. Coltrane is so cool. He is a great, love interest for Stacy. He totally, balances out the craziness of Candace and Jeremy's relationship. And he's just so chill. Him and Stacy deserve each other because they're both such good, supportive friends. Also, Coltrane is responsible for the hit song Give Me a Grade by Baljeet and the Baljeetles, because Coltrane Top 10 Anime Betrayals wasn't giving Baljeet a grade. He's played by Corbin Bleu. I probably should have mentioned this before now. And maybe they didn't have the budget to get Coltrane back, but he makes one stellar appearance and then he disappears. So I'm salty. C for Corbin Bleu, C for Coltrane. Up next, I think one of the first big celebrity cameos is Evander Holyfield in the episode where, we have to fight Buford, where Phineas has to fight Buford. I said we. We are Phineas. Phineas is us. The spirit of Phineas lives within me. And this is like Kenny Ortega. It's just a straight up celebrity cameo. This is Evander Holyfield. I'm not super familiar with the world of pro fighting, so I don't know who this is. I think it was a good cameo. I don't know. I'll put it in C. It was fine. Next we have Sandra Oh, Emmy-winning actress from Canada, playing Sandra Oh is not playing Sandra Oh. She is playing Doofenshmirtz's girlfriend. Unfortunately, this woman doesn't have a name. She's just Doofenshmirtz's girlfriend. But I love her. I think she's great. I like the episode where, Doofenshmirtz finds love, and it might work out. And I'm rooting for my boy to find love. She looks a little bit like Linda, so all of the Doofenshmirtz's Phineas's dad truthers out there, maybe Doofenshmirtz has a type. And then, they sing a really great song, Evil Love, and I think top 1 anime betrayal was when the satellite fell out of the sky and it hit her, and then she went, Heinz, I feel nothing. Sandra Oh, great delivery on that line. I'm gonna give it an A tier, because she gave us a great song, a great character, and most importantly, she gave us hope for Doof's future. Next, we have Bowling for Soup as themselves. And this one is particularly meta, because Bowling for Soup performs the Phineas and Ferb theme song, and then they appear as themselves in the show. What are the implications? I'm not going to get into it. I think this is a fun cameo. I think Bowling for Soup deserved it. High School Never Ends. Neither does Summer Vacation, seemingly. Maybe we'll get a sequel. I'm putting Bowling for Soup in B tier. B for Bowling for Soup. Up next, we have Southern Meep. So there's Meep with a Southern accent. And if you're going to get a Southerner to voice Meep, you better get Jeff Foxworthy, and that's exactly what they did. So Jeff Foxworthy as Southern Meep, pretty good. I appreciate it. I'm going to put Jeff Foxworthy Meep in the same tier as Lorenzo Llamas Meep, So yeah, that's pretty good. Up next, Joan Cusack as the train conductor lady. I know she has a name. I think it's Glenda. I shall refer to my Bible. Glenda. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been wrong yet. So, Joan Cusack as Glenda. I love Joan Cusack. Love her voice. I don't remember much about Glenda. I remember the episode being very, very sweet, where she just wants to drive her train one last time, and Candace goes with her, and then in the end, the train is like incinerated. It's very sad, but I don't remember much about her voice, so I'll put her in C tier. You know, it's a solid cameo, just like Evander Holyfield and Tina Fey and Coltrane. Corbin Bleu. Why? Please come back. Oh, Elizabeth Banks as Grulinda. Mrs. Effie Trinket herself, the producer of Cocaine Bear, Wild Style. This is also a really good episode where Doofenshmirtz is gonna be like, ooh, I'm gonna get that Grulinda. And then Miss Grulinda turns out to be a baddie. For that, ooh, Grulinda could get a B for baddie, but I don't remember much about the voice, and she's not in there very much. So I'm gonna say C. But once again, C is a very solid tier here. Up next, the racist truck guy. I don't think he was racist, but he was sexist, and he was like, Candace, you can't drive. Baby, you can't read the doll. Baby, you can't drive the monster truck. This guy is voiced by Billy Ray Cyrus. I'm giving him F tier because thankful for my dad's hair. Go girl, give us nothing. Be sexist to Candace. Like she doesn't already have enough going on. Next, Lonnie Love as Carl's disguise. This is an A tier. I love Carl's disguise. It's such a funny recurring gag that Carl the intern, the like little white boy, his disguise is like this black woman voiced by Lonnie Love. Did Major Monogram like sign off on that, or was that Carl's idea? Somebody needs to visit HR. But regardless, this is a great character. I would love to see more of her. So, shout out to the lady who works at the Blueprint store, Carl's disguise. Next, we have Jamie Oliver in the Meatloaf episode. I love this episode so much that one time my mom was like, we're having meatloaf for dinner, and I made my parents sit down and watch the Meatloaf episode of Phineas and Ferb, because Meatloaf and the Phineas and Ferb episode about Meatloaf are inseparable. With the Doofenshmirtz like biodegradable-inator, and then he like turns his own meatloaf rancid. I'm assuming the people who could potentially watch this are true Phineas and Ferb fanatics, so they don't need to be reminded of the Meatloaf episode, but if you do, go rewatch it. Love the Meatloaf episode. Love the song at the end. I'm a big Oasis fan, and if they had actually got Liam and Noel Gallagher to reunite for Phineas and Ferb, world peace, babes. Wars would have stopped. But alas, they didn't. I'm noticing a trend, though. Like, all of the British people in Phineas and Ferb are named Adrian. There's this Adrian, pretty sure that the Oasis knockoffs, one of them was named Adrian. There's another British Adrian on this list who will be coming to shortly. Who is the British Adrian? Can somebody at Mr. Jeff Swampy Marsh and the other guy... I'm so sorry, I'm a fake fan. Can somebody at them and ask? Dan Povenmire. Baby, you can't read the doll. Okay, so Jamie Oliver is in this episode as himself, and all the other as themselves are in B tier. Nah, babes. A tier for Jamie Oliver. He hates the chicken nuggets, but he loves the meatloaf. So A tier for him. He's the meatloaf king to Linda's meatloaf queen. Up next, we have Jeff McGarland, voiced by Seth MacFarlane. Even at my lowest, I'm still a Family Guy. And you know what? This is not a lowest. This is a career high, I think. This is also, like, A tier for me. He gets, like, 2 lines, but it's really funny. So good for him. Shout out to Seth MacFarlane. Shout out to Family Guy. Up next, Kelly Clarkson as herself in the Christmas special, where she shows up and they're like, oh my god, it's Kelly Clarkson. And then the whole episode, she's just like, do you guys want me to sing something? And then Phineas is like, no, I don't want you to exert yourself. Just sit down. That is so funny. That is so real of them. In terms of design, I find that the, like, actual celebrities who appear in the show, the designs are really, like, hit or miss. And I never thought that that looked much like Kelly Clarkson. And maybe, like, when the episode came out, that was the look she was rocking. But, yeah, it never screamed Kelly for me. So I really love her role in the episode, but the look was off-putting. So it's going to go in B tier, along with Bowling for Soup and Kenny Ortega. Not a bad place to be. Not a bad place at all. Next is Tim Curry as the real Dr. Lloyd Wexler. Do you think that him and Lawrence's voice actor, like, had a kiki about how they were both in... Sorry, I can't say kiki without thinking of the Glee cover of Let's Have a Kiki.
Let's have a kiki. Mother, I'm gonna let you have it. Let's have a kiki. I wanna have a kiki. Dive. Turn. Work. Let's have a kiki.
Moving on. Do you think that they reminisced about their time spent together on the set of the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Perhaps. It's a good cameo. I like the bit when the CD player starts skipping. But overall, I'm gonna put it C tier. It's a C tier cameo. C for Curry. There we go. That's how I justify all my choices. I just find some way to alliterate it. Speaking of alliterations, I come from a long alliterating lullaby. Lullaberry? I think it's Lullaberry. Sorry. I come from a long alliterating line of lullaberries. Voiced by Samantha Bee. Well, it's right there, bestie. It's right there. B tier for Lila Lullaberry. It's a great episode. It's like their Canada Day special. And as a Canadian, I love to see Canadian representation in media, especially if it's Phineas and Ferb media. I like Lila Lullaberry. It's hard to say. I think that her team up with Perry is a fun change of pace. He has to learn to work with someone because he can't always do it solo. I like her nemesis, the dude from Greenland. And she has a good song. A handcar is a metaphor for life. Also, the end of that episode, I didn't understand until very, very recently, is a reference to Ocean's 11. It used to make me really sad when I watched it as a kid because they're all just sitting at Niagara Falls and contemplating life, and then slowly everyone walks away. And I was like, aw, this is so beautiful. Phineas and Ferb made cinema. I realized that they were just ripping off cinema, but, you know, imitation is the best form of flattery, and it's still a good scene. Up next, Stanley. There's a Stanley cameo in Phineas and Ferb. This was Phineas and Ferb Mission Marvel, and Stanley, of course, got a cameo. He's a hot dog vendor selling Excelsior hot dogs, and yeah, A tier for Stan Lee. It's really good. Up next, internet sensation Barry Graff, everybody! I had no idea who this guy was when the episode came out. He's the Raining Tacos guy. He made Raining Tacos. And he also did Backyard Hodgepodge, which is a good song. I didn't know who he was, but you know what? I'm gonna give him a B tier for Backyard Hodgepodge. Next, guys. Do I sense the greatest of all time, the GOAT? It's Sherman the Librarian, voiced by Steve Zahn. who has been in a lot of other media, but I of course know him from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, where he plays Frank Heffley, who I love. He's so insane. And Steve Zahn gives, a performance on par with Frank Heffley to the character of Sherman, and that is high praise. High praise, my friends. So, Sherman is definitely S tier. S for Sherman. He sang a song that won Phineas and Ferb an Emmy Award. So you can't really compete with that. And, Sherman has a really great character arc, which character arcs aren't always plentiful in Phineas and Ferb. It's a very episodic show. But Sherman made me feel things. And I appreciate his growth, and I wish him the best in the future with Love Handle. Bobby Fabulous, I love you. Next, we have Mitch, voiced by David Mitchell. I love Big Fat Quiz of the Year. Love David Mitchell. Why won't he dance? Questions I will be asking till the end of time. Mitch is great. David Mitchell, do you think they were named after each other? Gave a great performance. I'm going to have to put this in A tier, so I guess that confirms that Mitch beats Meep. David Mitchell should be a villain in more things. Like, if Disney ever wants to go back to doing, proper villains, they've got someone on standby. Next. Morty Williams, voiced by Geraldo Rivera. I have a soft spot for trashy TV, and so I am overjoyed at the existence of the Morty Williams show in the Phineas and Ferb cinematic universe. Morty Williams is a really funny character, and the gags that they pull off with him, with his, with Candace in the wig, using all the old hair from the Smile Away school, is really good. The fact that they got Geraldo Rivera to play this guy is even better. It's let's get the scummy TV journalist to pay the scummy TV journalist. Geraldo Rivera, please don't sue me. I love your work in Al Capone's vault. Up next. This one is hard to categorize. This is where the other Adrian comes in. These guys have names. I wrote them down. Adrian, Nigel, and Ian. There are really, 2 British names in the Phineas and Ferb universe. And one of them is Ferb. And actually it's short for... So, these guys come in this episode where they're the commentators at a race. A car race. It's like Formula 1. And they are voiced by the hosts, the original hosts, of British Top Gear. Which are, in order here, we have Richard Hammond, Jeremy Clarkson, and James May. And these characters look exactly like them. This is literally just the host of Top Gear. But for some reason, they gave them all different names, even though they have the exact same appearance and personality. It just confuses me. But it gives me something to ponder.
Sometimes my genius it's almost frightening.
It really does. I really hate the point when the Jeremy Clarkson one, I don't know if he's Nigel, Adrian, or Ian, turns directly to the camera and speaks at the audience, because I don't like Jeremy Clarkson. Him and I are enemies on the astral plane. I think that our souls are locked in some kind of battle of good versus evil, wherein I can confidently say he is evil. Geraldo Rivera, I was ooh, don't come for me, because Geraldo never hurt me. Jeremy Clarkson hurt me. I don't like him, and I don't trust him. And I don't trust his Phineas and Ferb counterpart that stares directly at the audience and starts talking to them. And on that bombshell, B tier. Up next. Ooh, nostrils! It's the Sniffleton Nostrils. And they are voiced by various people because there are multiple of them, but one of them is Gary Lineker. I just think that's neat. I'll put them in D tier because once again, they have very few lines, but good on you, Gary. Returning to the world of British actors, we have Simon Pegg as the office stormtrooper. It was a really small role, but I appreciate that they got Simon Pegg in to do it. I'm a big fan of the Cornetto trilogy, so I'll put him up there. Uh-oh. Another brilliant one. Joel McHale as Norm's rejected head. Norm's rejected head is one of my favorite kind of recurring characters, even though he's in probably like 2 episodes, maybe just 1. But I think he should have been chosen to be Norm. He should have been the Norm. And Joel McHale does a great job. If we're talking about Drag Race, go check out Joel McHale on Drag Race. I can see her butt. That's so true, bestie. So, shout out to Norm's old head. You finally get a win. Next. Paolo Vanderbeek, voiced by Patrick Dempsey. There are a lot of weird choices in Phineas and Ferb. Like, they'll just bring in a very famous celebrity to voice a character for 2 lines. Paolo Vanderbeek doesn't even, like, speak. He has a really thick accent and he just kind of mutters things. And yet they were like, who shall voice this character, this throwaway character? And then they went, well, we hired the Top Gear trio for this episode, we might as well just get Patrick Dempsey. Was he in the studio for something else? This one also baffles me. It's strange, but I like it. I like it a lot. For that, even though he gets 2 lines, and I have plopped people further down for not having enough lines, I will put Paolo Vanderbeek in B tier. Next, we have Paul, the delivery driver. And what's interesting about Paul is that depending on what country you're in, he has a different voice actor. So Paul, also voiced by Simon Pegg. I think this is the first double entry in the list. But that's only in the UK. If you're in the US, which is the version of Phineas and Ferb I presumably got, he's voiced by Christian Slater. All of the weird choices seem to be going in B tier, but I think this is the weirdest one yet. So this is like a high B tier. I can't say that Paul was like memorable enough for me to justify him going alongside the icons like Norm's old head and Jeff McGarland. But the fact that they're like, we need to get 2 separate versions, one with Simon Pegg and one with Christian Slater. It's not for mortals to comprehend. Charlene Doofenshmirtz. One could argue that she is more of a series regular, so she shouldn't be here. But she's voiced by Allison Janney, whom I have a soft spot for because she's so good in I, Tonya, and she's so funny. So, Charlene Doofenshmirtz is such a good character. All of the like alimony payment stuff and the Vanessa stuff, she's really, really great. I love whenever she shows up. It's a real treat. So Charlene Doofenshmirtz, the character is going in A tier, but then you add on to it that Allison Janney is her voice, and that's just like cherry on top. Alright, up next we have Mrs. Johnson, who is voiced by Jane Lynch of Glee fame. She's done other stuff, but she is from Glee, and she's a fond memory from Glee. So I'm going to say that she's a B tier. I like Mrs. Johnson. So Jane Lynch as Mrs. Johnson is going in B tier, and that's how Sue sees it. I was going to do the C, but then I think it's like this. Yeah, because it's backwards for my end. Next is Ferb's grandpa, Reginald, the flying fish monger. voiced by Malcolm McDowell, most known for A Clockwork Orange. This guy is so cute. He's like the quintessential British grandpa. Yeah, he's pretty inoffensive, and I like him. So I'm gonna put him in a comfortable C tier, along with these other characters. I don't have anything against them. You know what? No, I'll put him in B tier. Him and Mrs. Johnson can chill. So, there we go. B tier for Mr. Fletcher. Up next, we have the announcer, who is voiced by the guy who trademarked "Let's get ready to rumble," and that's what he does. That's what he says. Fork found in kitchen. D tier. Okay, so next on my little list is Captain Squint, voiced by Nick Frost. I'm gonna put him here, beside the Office Stormtrooper, because you shouldn't separate Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. And I think that's suitable. Dr. Hirano, voiced by Ming-Na Wen. Dr. Hirano is Sissy's mom! She's a dentist. She's fine. I'm gonna put her in C tier as well. I like her. Okay, finally, we have JB, voiced by J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons is, you know, a really good voice actor. I am a big Avatar fan, so he's one of my favorite characters in Legend of Korra. Well, not J.K. Simmons, Tenzin, who was voiced by J.K. Simmons. So, J.K. Simmons has a really prolific acting career, like doing on-camera stuff, but as well as kind of behind the camera, doing voice stuff. He's great. And JB, as a character, gave us Brick. Brick, 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 brick. It's fun. His mind knows no bounds. I'm going to put him in A tier. So this is my tier list. I'm looking if there are any changes I would like to make personally. And I don't think there are. Jeff McGarland might be ranked a little too high, but I just think that that's like a... Excuse me. Jeff McGarland might be ranked a little too high, but I think he's okay there. I like him there. So this is the final tier list. Looking at F tier, it feels correct because they did Guy Fieri dirty, and this man has no place in our society. And then at the top, we have Kakapoo-Poo. Emmy-winning Sherman the Librarian. And Morty. You know they're good because I can't get through it without, like, laughing. Because the writing in this show is just so immaculate. Morty Williams. There we go. So Phineas and Ferb has some of the greatest, like, guest appearances of any, like, cartoon show I can think of. They're always so random, and sometimes they're really purposeful, and other times it was just who was, like, walking down the street in Hollywood that day that they could, like, hook, like the Walrus Man, and pull in, and, like, force them to read 2 lines, and then kick them back out. It was brilliant, and I am so thankful. They're trying to escape. And I am so thankful for Phineas and Ferb. So this is my tier list. I believe it is publicly available on Tiermaker. I know that there are some people that I probably missed. There are definitely other famous people that were in the show that I'm just not as familiar with, who should be here, but I didn't include them because I kind of want to have a baseline idea of who these people are before I talk about them. But yeah, other than that, that's all I have to say. Thanks for stopping by. Catch you on the flippity flop. I don't have anything else to say that's really productive. So, cool. Thanks.